sports and TV show streams going live on YouTube, streaming live on YouTube. I did start my iPad again because the title went to upcoming event. So then I switched my iPad back on again after turning it off. And then I went to upcoming event and clicked on it and it started. So I think we are going live now. So I'm actually gonna, film Rescue 911 videos using Tiki Live in my bedroom, and then I'm gonna go up front and use Commando IPTV and get the rest of them through Ketchup. But the ones that are like in January or February are the ones I'll do in my bedroom. Going live on YouTube. A robber takes employees hostage at a restaurant in Greenville, North Carolina, and a police officer attempts to push a stalled car out of the path of an upcoming train. That's why it's Locomotive Cop Hero.
Loading video, please wait.
He's special because he's kind. He's also special because I saved his life. Every time after I get done talking to him, he says, I love you. I go, I love you too.
What are you going to do in school? Be a cheerleader? Huh?
I feel proud of myself. I feel proud of Danielle. I feel proud of Melissa. We did something good, and we wouldn't forget that evening for our life.
He's very nice. He's so sweet. I'm not glad that this happened.
Volume 47. Volume 48. Volume 49.
You never thought it would come to this when you were on the telephone, huh? Who were you trying to call anyhow? You don't?
Today on Rescue 911. Caught live on tape.
There was no robbery in progress there.
Held at gunpoint. 2 employees fear for their lives.
Oh, he's got a gun! He's got a gun!
I can hear him yelling through the glass. I want a car, or I will kill this hostage.
Plus, an oncoming train barreling toward a mother and her young son.
We're just praying until the trains come by.
On Rescue 911.
On March 5th, 1992, 2 employees of a bar and grill in Greenville, North Carolina were closing up for the night. All the customers were gone, and bartender Bert Marlowe and assistant manager Kathy Strickland were down to the last few tasks before going home. Some of the footage in this story was taped as the events unfolded.
Approximately 2 p.m., a lone gunman entered the restaurant. Inside at that time was the assistant manager.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll see you soon.
Ken.
When we continue.
I had a difficult time understanding exactly what he was saying, but I did get the gist of what was going on. There was no robbery in progress there.
Every
Emergency.
The call came into Greenville Police telecommunicator Bobby Cannon.
I had a very difficult time understanding exactly what he was saying, but I did get the gist of what was going on. There was no robbery in progress there. He never come back. And that's when we knew for a fact that we had a bad situation.
Lieutenant Lee Garish got to the scene within 5 minutes of hearing the call on his radio.
You could look in and see an individual crawling across the floor. So I identified myself as a police officer. Told him to show himself and to come out.
Oh, he's got a gun, he's got a gun!
I felt at that instant that if I did not shoot at him, he was going to shoot at me. Within approximately 5 minutes, I could see the gunman with the female, and he has the gun to her head, and he has the male with his right arm, and he brings them both out together. And I can hear him yelling through the glass, I want a car, or I will kill these hostages. Then he yells, I'm letting him go with the keys. I want him to start the car, the hostage's car.
Yeah!
And I told him we could not provide him a car, to please let the hostage go. And he screamed back, I will kill her first. I will not let her go. Get me a car. We handcuffed the male subject. It's a possibility he's a suspect. I asked him, I said, do you think you know who he is? He said, I think so. I recognize the voice.
I tell them who I think it is, and that this was done by a coworker friend. And I was very angry because this was supposed to be my friend who was doing this, and he was supposed to be a friend of Kathy's.
When he made the threat, I did believe him. But the main goal was to try to keep him calm, to keep anyone from getting hurt.
On several occasions, I could see the suspect put the gun to Kathy's head. I could see him put the gun to his head, and it appeared to be eliciting a response from us to shoot him, to shoot at him. We did not know what he was trying to do.
A command post was set up across the street, and hostage negotiator Sergeant Doug Jackson was brought in.
He advised me that he wanted to die. When you committed suicide, my main goal was to get Kathy out of there unhurt, and hopefully nobody else would be hurt.
By 3:15 a.m., the police emergency response team arrived under the command of Sergeant David Johnson.
We were advised that he was in a car, he was coming outside, and he was going to leave. He wanted the keys to the patrol car, and I kept informing him he didn't have anywhere to go. His only option was to go back inside. And he was saying, I have another option. I can let the girl go and then start shooting at you, and then you're going to have to kill me. I got the impression at that point that he really wanted us to kill him. So I was able to convince him to go back inside. I just told him, why didn't he just let the girl go and everything would be okay? She was almost hysterical at this point. I remember hearing her say she didn't want to go back inside.
We continued to talk. He talked to his father. He told me that his father had hung up on him. He called his mother. He tried to talk David into coming out, and David wouldn't come.
But just as dawn was breaking, it seemed like the mood was kind of switched. I was becoming more convinced that something was about to happen. He had made the comment to the negotiator that it would all be over with in a matter of moments. He started consuming beer. And once he starts drinking, we had a real concern that he might not be rational.
The suspect's step-uncle, Leighton Getzinger, was notified of the situation. And around 10:30, he went to the scene with Police Chief Chuck Hinman to offer his help.
I was convinced that the step-uncle really did have a positive influence over the hostage taker. I agreed to a swap of sorts. I agreed that if he, the hostage taker, would release the hostage, that I would then let the step-uncle enter.
She's gone. She's free. She's out.
I guess it was at that point that I finally said it's over. And I hugged my mom and dad, I guess, at the same time, and it was just very heartbreaking to hear my father just cry. He doesn't cry. And it was upsetting. It made me angrier.
Got it.
They stayed inside for approximately 20 minutes and talked, and I then called him, and the uncle answered the phone and told me that to back off, to give him plenty of time, that there was no hurry, that he had the gun, and that the gun was a toy gun. It surprised everyone, because the whole night long we had gone on the assumption that the gun was real. We allowed him to talk about 15 more minutes. And I called the uncle back, and he said that they were about ready to come out. He says, just please don't rough him up when he comes out. I told him he would not be roughed up if he did as instructed.
He said, well, I've screwed up so bad here. I said, I know. But we're going to, it'll work out. This is not the end of the world. It's going to be a delay in the rest of your life. That's it. But Kathy's alive. You're alive. I'm alive. Live people can fix things. Dead people can't.
Mr. Martin, why'd you do it?
During the 9 hours and 20-some minutes, there was a number of times when he could have been taken out. As long as he didn't have Kathy, then he wasn't going to get out. And I think that that's pretty well the epitome of restraint, and that's about the best that we could have done.
The suspect was subsequently found guilty of 3 felony charges and sentenced to 45 years in prison.
We have visited with him. He's probably demonically. He has not received any rehabilitation since he's been in prison. That concerns me. But I think going to prison was probably good for him because it reinforces some of the things that were destroyed in his character as a young man by the abuse that he suffered. And that's having to make commitment, pay for your mistakes.
I've forgiven him, and I pray that he's all right, and I worry about him. But then again, it was just so upsetting to have a friend go just to do this to you. Because my heart went out for him, but then it hated him too. It was difficult. I guess that's why I felt like I was getting up. When you have so much fear. But I'm getting better. I feel that old Kathy coming back. It's nice.
Next.
Come on, lady, get out of it. In the direction the train was coming, you can't see the train until it's right there at you. The thought of not being able to get out of the car.
Call now for a free case review. Call 1-800-608-0947.
In Waxhaw, North Carolina, on the night of September 8th, 1994, Jan Emore found out that some police officers are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice even in situations beyond the line of duty. Jan Emore was on her way home from work with her 3-year-old son, Vance. Approaching the railroad crossing from the opposite side were Jeanette Smith and her daughter.
They saw that the car was stopped on the train track.
What's she doing on the track?
She's just sitting there. And then finally she gets out and goes to the officer who was parked behind her. And at that time we realized it was Lance. He helped with our wedding in 1992.
What do you think happened to it?
I don't know, it just started squirting and then it stalled.
Oh my God.
In the direction the train was coming at. You can't see the train until it's right there at you. And then she goes and gets back in the car, and I couldn't understand. It was like Lance got out of the car and put the train on the track.
Come on, lady, get out of the train. Come on.
And my daughter said she's getting a baby out of the car.
Messing with the car seat, she's trying to get it open.
The thought of the child being in the car and not being able to get out of the car, I thought she would die.
The train's gonna smash you! No, it isn't.
by, I didn't know whether they were alive or dead. You're just praying until the train's gone by. When the train cleared it and we saw Lance standing there with this lady and this little boy, it was a miracle. I mean, that's all you could say was, my daughter says, Mom, I never saw a miracle, I just saw one now. I could not get the car seat undone. When I finally got it to release, I just got to the doorway of the car before the train was rushing by the front of the car. And I did not understand why it didn't hit the car. I was kind of shrouding Vance to protect him from the impact of the train hitting the car. But the impact just never came.
I remember thinking to myself, they're fixing to die. And I reached back down and got in front of the car and I picked up with everything I had. And I remember yelling, screaming, come on. And I felt the front of the car come up off the ground. So I just pushed as hard as I could. At the point where I dropped the car, I felt the train brushing against my clothing as it went by. So it was close. And just kept repeating, that was just too close. That was close. And the little boy sort of reached up and pushed us apart and looked up at me and he said, you're my policeman. And we hugged him and I think both of us started to cry at that point.
It's been 2 months since the incident.
Every day when we get up, I know that I may not have had him, here with me today. And I may not have been here to be with him and his father. So I got like this extension on life that's really neat. It's made me slow down, and if it means doing the wash or sitting in the floor playing trucks, we sit in the floor and play trucks. Get somebody else to do the wash, or I'll do it later, or we'll buy more clothes. I'm playing trucks.
Waxhaw police officer Lance Land and the Eno family have become friends.
Lance saved Vance's life and my life. There's nothing in any kind of police code that says you have to get on a train track with a speeding train coming. He's a hero.
There's a feeling that you get when you realize that ordinary people have the power to change the course of someone else's life if they just take the initiative to do it.
The situation that I was in doesn't stop me from understanding the importance of keeping my child in a car seat. You just need to really educate yourself and be very choosy about the car seat that you pick, so that you're not only looking at it for impact resistance, but also to get the children out quickly. I just never looked at mine in that light before.
Right.
I'm proud of Lance for what he done. I'm proud of the fact that he did it and lived to tell about it, because I have my doubts, but I'm very proud of him. I always wanted to be able to instill in my son that police officers were cool, but Vance thinks Lance is just the coolest. Maybe second to his daddy, but the coolest.
Meow.
Santana 6-7.
An officer gets injured in a shootout. A documentary on the San Francisco's neonatal hospital. This was taken from January 13th. So it is probably going to be deleted from the DVR soon. That's why I'm putting it up on YouTube.
You have an emergency? Today on Rescue 911, a cop's worst fear. An officer is shot while trying to break up a drunken brawl. Now, a fellow officer must keep him alive while protecting himself.
It's tough to take a high-powered rifle and shoot another human being.
Plus, go inside a neonatal clinic for premature babies.
We're going to help him every step of the way.
On Rescue 911.
On July 6, 1991, police officer Phil Weber was assigned to patrol one of the safest areas in Provo, Utah. Around 5:30 p.m., he and a deputy from the sheriff's department, Mike Morgan, were working together on a routine investigation.
Officer Weber was checking out the possibilities of a stolen car, and I responded to help him with that.
126 copy. Okay, they say it's not stolen.
Okay, appreciate it.
When you work closely with the police officer, you gain a real friendship, and there's a brotherhood there. As I got up the road, I noticed one individual was being pursued by two others.
337, 126. So we got to fight up on this dirt lane.
I called Officer Weber to come and back me up. The one saw me and took off running back down this dirt lane. I didn't pay attention to him at that time. I had the two others who now were very verbal with each other.
What started all this? Troy did. Oh!
Officer Weber responded, and he took charge of the one individual.
Hey, look, everything's happening here. What's going on? Now we can do it two ways. You're intoxicated.
He was very belligerent. He was intoxicated, and I was preparing to make an arrest.
We can talk. We haven't done anything wrong here. He just started pushing me, and we got in an argument, and was hitting me in the face. He was punching me in the face. Stay here. Mike.
I looked down the lane, and I saw the individual who had run from us now walking up the lane with a rifle in his hand.
Get out.
10 for unit for 1033 Boat Harbor Drive.
Provo police and fire dispatchers Susan Lester and Linda Hargaden were on duty that day.
1033 is officer needs assistance now. I'm thinking there's something wrong. There's something big time happening because Phil would call for 1033 if Phil wasn't in real danger.
When we continue.
This weekend.
Or go online now to learn more.
Sunday nights are now Walker nights on Get TV.
Drop the gun!
He didn't appear to have any fear of what he was walking into.
Stop where you're at! Drop the gun! Drop the gun now! What the gun do?
We were shooting a number of shots, but because of the distance, at 125 yards with the shotgun, they weren't having a lot of effect.
10-4, ambulance will be responding.
was shot, I couldn't believe it. And then remembering back to the night before when I called him on the air and told him he'd just become a grandfather again, I kept thinking, this isn't fair.
Stop shooting! Put that gun down! Put the gun down! Drop the gun! Stop where you're at! Come on, come in here.
He had a large quantity of blood squirting from his neck, which appeared to be an arterial type bleed.
You're okay. No, no, Phil. I don't want you to lay down. I want you to sit up.
And at that time, I thought Phil was going to die. I didn't think he would make it.
Phil, look at me. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be all right.
As I'm holding Phil's neck, I'm looking through the rear window at the suspect. He was struggling with his gun and getting up into a sitting position at this time.
Okay? Okay.
I realized that Phil was very vulnerable now, sitting on the ground behind my vehicle. If the suspect were to shoot underneath the vehicle, Phil's back was exposed to him.
Look. Phil, deep breath. Deep breath, okay?
I realized that I had to do something to put the suspect down.
No, lay down. No, lay down, man. I want you to sit up. I want you to sit up, okay?
I pulled out the M14 with my right hand, still having my left hand on Officer Weber's neck. But I wasn't able at that point in time to put a round in the chamber because I only had the one hand that I was operating with. I knew that I was going to have to leave Phil sometime, that I couldn't continue to hold on to that neck. And in a very short time, Phil would bleed to death.
You're all right. Okay? Can I help?
I was nervous at that point. I didn't know whether the suspect was going to attempt to hurt Phil or to help him, but I believed that I didn't have any choice in the matter except to let him help me.
Don't you let go. You're all right. Put the gun down! Drop the gun now! Hey, drop the gun! My friend, back off!
At that point in time, I was prepared to shoot him.
Now back up! What I told you to. Now stay there.
I realized this was the most dangerous situation I could be in. I now had a suspect fighting me from the rear. I had a suspect in the front of me trying to shoot me, and I had to try to divide my attention between the two of them.
Drop the gun! Run away from me! Put the gun down! Drop the gun!
I've never shot anybody before. It's tough to take a high-powered rifle and shoot another human being.
Park Ranger Mike Forshee and his partner had heard the report of an officer shot on their radio.
When I ran up to the scene, first thing I said was, "What the heck have you guys got yourself into?"
I don't know, let's get down here. He's come walking down the lane and start firing. It's just about us and what's happening. Okay.
I knew that an ambulance wouldn't come into the scene until the scene was secured. And that was a definite concern, was to get them there as quickly as possible.
We need to go down here and get away from this guy, okay? Okay.
Noting the condition of Phil was in when I came up, I thought he could die.
Officer Forshee and I went down the lane, leaving our position of cover, but I felt like we had no other choice to get down there and to get the gun away from him.
Okay, Mike, I'll get the gun. Okay. You cover him. Keep your hand away from the gun.
Once the scene was secured, Provo fire rescue units, including EMT Mike Ferris, moved in to treat the victims.
I could see that the officer was Phil Weber and that his injuries were to his neck and also to his hand. When you lose the amount of blood that Phil lost, you can bleed out and die immediately.
I've seen a number of people just prior to their dying, and the look that they've got in their eyes was exactly what Phil had in his eyes. When I advised my dispatch, I told them that he was critical and possibly even fatal.
Phil Weber was transported to Utah Valley Regional Medical Center and put under the care of emergency physician Elmo Bruo.
I saw a small penetrating wound on the right side of the neck, and my concern was that he was bleeding internally from rupture of the carotid artery.
We're going to need x-ray for a prostate.
Also on the examination, we noticed that his index finger was almost completely shattered, and was very concerned about this injury secondarily.
Phil's wife Karen came to the hospital as soon as she was notified of the shooting.
I was very shocked at seeing all the blood, and I could feel the tears welling up inside of me, and I wanted to be strong. I really held back the tears as much as I could, and I told him that I loved him, and he meant everything to me.
It became apparent that there was not an interruption or a laceration of the carotid artery. So it was elected at this point that the piece of shrapnel should be left alone, because our concern was that we would create more injury trying to remove the piece of shrapnel than we would benefit from if we did. Literally, if the bullet had been 1/2 inch closer to the artery, I don't think Phil would have made it. He would have died before getting to the hospital.
Despite attempts to save Phil's shattered index finger, 6 months later, it was amputated.
Your trigger finger is pretty much your life. If you don't have a trigger finger, you're not a cop. So this was a real traumatic blow to Phil.
That bothered me, as it would anybody, I suppose, that you're going to lose part of your body. I didn't know how that was going to affect my job. I didn't know how I'd be able to keep my job. But given all the alternatives, I have nothing to complain about. I'm extremely lucky.
Many times I look at him and think I'm so thankful that he's still with me.
I don't need anybody with it.
What's that? The jinx. Phil's a very lucky guy, and I'm lucky too to have him with me. That we have this time to spend together that could have been shut off.
The man who shot Officer Weber was found guilty of attempted murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison.
I would like to think I'm back to being the Phil Weber I used to be.
Today, Phil is the only Provo police officer that is qualified to shoot with his left hand and his right hand.
How come there's no holes in your target? Is that shooting yours?
Deputy Morgan, Mike Morgan, saved my life out there.
There's even a greater bond than there was before with me and Phil. Before, we were professional acquaintances. When you go through something like this, we fought together, we survived together, and we're stronger because of it.
You really were shooting at my target. I was. I told you I was.
My wife and I both firmly believe that my life was saved by an angel. That took the form of first aid administered by Deputy Morgan, by medical personnel and other officers, and hospital personnel. Everything put together over a lot of people. A lot of people put a lot of time, a lot of effort into me personally. So I'm extremely lucky.
Next.
That's the girl let her help me breathe, okay? It's hard to do.
Johnny Cat.
Every year in America, more than 3 million babies are born. New parents are filled with hope. But every minute of every day, another baby is born prematurely, and new parents worry that their baby will die or survive with lifelong health problems. This story is not a recreation. It is footage shot as the events happened in March 1989.
It happens every second of every day around the world.
Now look down. Here comes your baby. It's a boy.
She wants a baby.
Hi, Karen. So slippery.
It's slippery.
You did it. Can I touch him?
Of course. Easy.
They're day early, but that's okay.
But being born early is a struggle for most of the babies at the Mount Zion Perinatal Center in San Francisco.
Desperately ill babies are transported here from all over Northern California and Nevada at any hour of the day or night, usually night. Dr. Robert Roth is the director of the transport program. At 3 in the morning, in a small logging town up the coast, a set of twins has been born 10 weeks prematurely.
I'll give you a call back. Time is of the essence in transport, and that's why we say we try to be out the door in 30 minutes, because the babies sometimes tend to undergo sort of a honeymoon period. You know, we get a few hours before they really start going downhill, and we'd like to get the baby transported during that period. We have a twin transport to Fort Bragg, and we're going to need 2 planes.
Within an hour of the first call, Dr. Doug Henning and an air ambulance team are on their way to Fort Bragg. This is not the beginning Donna and Tim Bozzoli had imagined for their sons.
He's seen them. I haven't yet. That's what I don't want. If I see them before they leave, I don't want them to go.
It's gonna be tough. That's the hard part. When you got them, you want to love them. That's the toughest.
Do you know what the IV has been running at?
Like most preemies, Marcus Bozzoli's biggest problem at this point is breathing. Because his condition is more serious than his brother Michael's, he will travel first.
You're on.
The twins had been born with respiratory distress syndrome. Without immediate medical attention, they would die within a day of being born. Donna is given a brief moment to meet her son and say goodbye.
That's the ventilator helping him breathe, okay? It's hard to leave him, isn't it?
Back at Mount Zion, Dr. Roth's team prepares for the arrival of the first baby.
20 minutes out. That took care of it. All right. Big statement.
High-tech neonatal care like this has increased the survival rate of babies by more than 50%.
Hey, that way. Yeah, this is twin B. This is twin B. They intubated the baby, put him in 100%, and on ventilator settings of about 25 over 4 times the rate of 35, and dropped in a UAC. The kid has had blood cultures taken and is on AMP and GEN, and has had eye care and vitamin K. Now, we've been a little bit disturbed by the fact that this kid has been running a heart rate that's been ranging between 95 and 115, and regularly, and the kid seems quite quiet. The real question, of course, is to whether or not we do an LP when the kid's a little more stable. Yeah, Jeff's bringing the other one down.
The second plane arrives by late evening, carrying the Bozzoli's other twin son, Michael.
Was fairly
The next morning, Dr. Susan Snyderman brings Dr. Henning up to date on the events of the night.
nicely. And he was nice and stable all night, and then this morning on the routine chest x-ray, had another pneumothorax.
Oh boy.
So, yeah. So we had to put a chest tube in here because that lung collapsed out. This is call for me? Yeah.
2 days later, Donna and Tim come to San Francisco to be reunited with their sons.
Here they are. These are the 2 babies. And I know it looks, all these wires and various things. Just so you know, that all these things are just attached to the skin. The only thing that's actually going into the baby is this tube. So some parents come in looking at a baby that size and think, my God, this baby's going to be damaged the rest of its life. And we can say, no, your baby's really doing well, and we'll keep you informed along the way as things develop. Obviously, this is a very stressful occupation. But when you put all your energy into saving a baby, what happens is you're really giving a whole lifetime to a person, and it's very gratifying.
This one's not going to open his eyes. Well, they're doing a lot better here than they'd be able to do in Fort Bragg, really. They're in good hands here. So just as long as they're getting better and I can take them home when they're bigger, I'll be happy.
It will take weeks of intensive care before doctors will be able to tell if Marcus and Michael will be all right. Two and a half months later, the same week the twins were originally due to be born, both babies have more than double their birth weight.
Be a big boy, stand on his own 2 feet.
While Marcus was more seriously ill at birth, his lungs developed more quickly than his brother Michael's. He will be the first to go home.
I like to see him play football for the 49ers.
Two-and-a-half-year-old Robert has waited for months to meet his baby brother.
All my dreams is that they're going to grow up, they're going to do what they want, and we're going to help them any way we possibly can what they want for their dreams. And we're going to help them every step of the way.
Both babies will be monitored for the next 2 years, but for Marcus and Michael, the future looks promising.
Dick trapped kid 911 hamburger hold. This was from February 9th. It doesn't really give a summary. But a kid is trapped in a deck, and I don't know what the hamburger story is.
There's an incredible amount of guilt, and I deal with that every day. I deal with that when she struggles for her words. I deal with that when I see her finally back at drill team and trying to catch up with the other girls. My responsibility was to make sure that she was safe at all costs, and I didn't do that. Sometimes I sit back and I look at her and I just start laughing because she'll be doing things that I don't expect her to do, which is silly because with Heather I should expect the unexpected.
I tell her all the time, Heather, you're amazing. You can do whatever you want.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911, three friends on a dangerous adventure. When curiosity leads a young boy to disaster.
Go now, go!
My greatest fear was that he would die before his father got there.
It's just like the bottom fell out of my world. Plus, a brave young woman takes a bullet in the head.
Can you see anything? Oh my God!
On Rescue 911.
We begin in the rural community of Sandra, California, as three 10-year-old boys set out on the morning of March 7th, 1992.
So what are we doing there? I think I'll get something through the wall. Did it go work?
Levi, Axton, and Joseph have been like the Three Musketeers, and the neighborhood is the forest.
Cool. How are we gonna build it? How are we gonna chop off some of the wood?
Three 10-year-olds in the woods can have some great adventures, but not all adventures are good adventures.
Let's do it.
Axton Feezer and his two best friends had played before near an abandoned house in the woods.
All the kids knew about it. It was not even done, it was like halfway done. We wanted to get in, there's only one door to the house, but the furniture blocked the door, so we couldn't get in. So we thought if we climb up the deck, we could get in the house.
Yeah, look. I'll get this.
Levi Daly lived closest to the house.
Joyce messed around with the lizards. Axton got the machete and then we started chopping on the poles. The deck is up on stilts, so we thought if it collapsed, it would have a like sign so we can climb up. It won't be so steep.
Ten-year-old Joseph Oakes came over to help.
We'd take 3 chops each. The first pole took a long time.
One more chop in the Let's go to the other side. Yeah. Let's go to the last. Yeah, we'll go last. I just had to get that piece off.
The second pole, the second to last time, I'm the one that chopped it.
6 times.
We were warning him, Joey's getting kind of skinny, you know. And then he's like, oh, I can get out of here in time. We said, well, if it does fall, run that way. Get out of there. That big old deck collapsed on him. I was just hoping that he'd be okay. We knew we needed help.
Go get help, go!
Levi's a fast runner, so he went down.
Joseph.
I was trying to get his attention, trying to see if he'd talk to me, but he wouldn't.
Hang in there, buddy.
He was unconscious. I was really scared because I had no one around me. I didn't know what to do.
When we continue.
Axton, with all the tact of the 10-year-olds, had
We were given Walker. Walker Texas Ranger. Now every Sunday from 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern on Get TV.
When a heavy wooden deck collapsed on top of 10-year-old Joseph Oakes, his friend Levi ran home to get help. Within 5 minutes, he was back with his father, Doug Daly.
The deck was across his chest. It was laying right on top of him. I couldn't stick my hand in there.
Get some blocks.
My wife was coming right behind us, and I hollered at her to dial 911. And I kept checking to see if I could slide my hand in between his chest and the porch. And once I could do that, I figured that that's about all I could do.
Run down the end of the road, wait for the ambulance. Go!
Bill and Trish Oakes were just leaving their house when Bill's pager went off.
We were going to pick up my son, but I had to respond for a call of a child trapped under a collapsed building.
Gotta go, sweetie.
I'll pick up Jody. In a small community like this, every time the fire phone rings and Bill leaves, we wonder, who is it? Is it somebody we know? Is it a family member?
It's probably Joseph.
I said it's probably Joey because I knew he was up there, but it was a joke.
We kind of laughed a little bit about it and went from there. Chief Dave Murphy was in charge of the Salyer volunteer firefighters who responded.
When I neared Odin Flat, I saw Axton and Levi and realized it had to be Joseph. Axton, with all the tact of a 10-year-old, said to me, "He'll probably live, but he'll never walk again." It was a pretty awful sight.
Joseph?
There was this gurgling wheeze as he tried to breathe with all the blood in his airway, which is a sound I'll never forget.
I'm not gonna leave. Your dad's on the way. He'll be here in a few minutes.
He was using every ounce of life that he had to keep breathing and just to hold on. My greatest fear was that he would die before his father got there.
We went through our normal scenario. Okay, it's a porch falling on a kid. What could happen? Internal injuries, head injury. I told Billy to stay there. I'd come back and tell him what we needed. It was kind of a shock when Trish told me it was Joseph. Bill was sitting in the truck. I kind of played my head how was I going to tell him, and there's no way to be nice about it.
Joseph.
He was coming over the top of me, trying to get up the hill.
It's just like the bottom fell out of my world. Now I just remember walking away from everybody.
It is a first responder's worst nightmare. Joe's my stepson, and as horrible as it was for me, I know it was 100 times worse for his own father.
Hey, Dad, we could use some help here.
Volunteer Joe Reyes was the first EMT on the scene.
I wanted to involve him, but I didn't want to overload him. I thought Joseph needs to hear a voice, a familiar voice, a comforting voice.
Keep talking to him. Let him hear your voice. I want to hear a positive sound, okay?
I love you, Joe. Let me get you out.
Both legs were at a strange angle, so I knew he had fractures of the femur. Knew there was a possible back injury because the way the porch was laying on him, but there's nothing to do until they could get him out.
I definitely suspected a head injury because of the fluids coming out of his ears, his nose.
Me and Axton were praying and all that. And then after that, we prayed some more. I was just hoping they'd save his life.
When we got him down, his blood pressure bottomed out, and we knew we were losing him. I was scared to death that was going to happen right in front of me.
They flew to Mad River Hospital because it was 2 minutes closer than the hospital in Reading, and they knew that he didn't have 2 minutes. It was that close.
At Mad River Community Hospital, Joseph was treated by a team of doctors, including orthopedic surgeon Carl Benton.
Crush injuries are the worst injuries that I see because all the tissues of the body are damaged. Muscles can die, The patient with crush injuries can have multiple organ failure.
Yeah, still 100%.
We went in and he was in a coma, looking pretty rough around the edges, and I was still scared to death that he wasn't going to make it. You hear me, Joseph?
Amazing
10-year-old Joseph
Grace
Oakes
is
underwent surgery
being
for his
played
head
on
and
the
leg
organ.
injuries and had to go through months of recuperation.
I felt frustrated, like I should know this, or I should be walking sooner. I was very surprised when I took my first step without sort of falling or leaning on something.
The community support was just incredible. They set up a fund for Joseph for medical, had prayer sessions, sent food. We put an ad in the paper because there was so many people to thank was the only way we could do it. And we said, you know we live in the best place on the earth, because of the people that are here.
Bill was kind of wavering on his involvement in the fire department, and when this happened, he's committed for life now.
I don't want to tell.
The neighbor lifting the deck off probably bought us some time as far as allowing him to breathe more freely. Those 2 or 3 inches did help us out. Everybody contributed, and to me, they were all heroes.
I didn't really believe that I was a hero because it was mostly my fault. It was part of my fault. It was everybody's fault. And we shouldn't have been up there in the first place. But we were just little kids.
We're gonna go to, and if anything can make you reaffirm your love for a person, it's something like this. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Being in bed for 3 or 4 months and the surgeries in a wheelchair, it was really difficult for a young kid to handle. But now he's back to good old Joseph. He's doing great.
I would have missed Joseph's sense of humor and his creativity. But I think Joe has a long life ahead of him, an exciting one.
Next.
Go online or visit a Target store today.
More bang for your buck than that's money in your pocket.
How are we doing? Are we about ready to open? Yeah, go ahead.
On June 28th, 1993, 22-year-old Candace
Hey, that
was
was
the
my
manager of a
birthday,
fast
June
food restaurant
28,
in Mesa, Arizona,
1993.
as they were opening up around 6 a.m. Annette Pfeiffer was also on the early shift that morning.
Candace was so young and vibrant. She worked with kids in gang prevention. She taught Sunday school, and she had all these goals for herself. It was just really weird when it happened.
For your vacation tomorrow, you're gonna go. Don't let me forget, I'll give you $1 and you can put it on 13 red.
Who's in charge here? We thought he was the air conditioner repairman. We were waiting for somebody to come and fix it.
Oh my God.
Think where she is now.
Oh no. Candace, we're being
The
robbed.
only thing he said in front of us again was, "You come on," towards Candace. He had the gun. "You come on," and then he says, "You two stay here." Queen and I were holding hands and praying, and then we started to talk about, God, he won't shoot Candace. He won't shoot Candace. He's just gonna take the money and go.
Come on.
Oh my God.
Mesa police dispatcher Chris Moonaw was handling the call.
Usually it's 6 o'clock in the morning. It's a medical call, but not a violent shooting and robbery like that. This one kind of caught me off guard.
Rescue units were immediately dispatched to the scene, including Mesa Fire Department paramedic Kevin Mashew.
You get a lot of the same calls and you don't remember them, but this one was affecting me a little more because I had been in the restaurant business and I had actually been held at gunpoint in a robbery.
It was hard when I saw the blood. It was on the floor and it was just like a puddle. It was deep and it was a lot.
Okay, and what did he say? He told us to go into the walk-in and he told our supervisor to come out and open the safe. And he told us to stay in the walk-in. He heard a gunshot. He got shot.
Okay, everything's gonna be okay. You're doing real good, all right? They're on their way. They're gonna be there in just a minute. We've got paramedics on the way to help her, okay? She's still conscious of talking to you?
No, we're not blood.
Okay. Yeah, just sit her down against the wall.
Employee Queena Curtis had taken over the call.
She told me to have her sit down, but Candace didn't want to sit down. She just kept throwing up blood.
And put the towel up to her neck. Press kind of hard to try to stop the bleeding, okay? All right, everything's gonna be okay. Are they upstairs? Yes, there's 2 officers there. Paramedics are gonna be there in just a minute, okay? You just need to stay on the phone with me. All right? What's your name, ma'am?
My name's Queena.
I'm sorry? Queena?
The officers are here.
Okay. Are the officers inside with you?
We're here.
All right.
She's been shot in the back of the neck.
I was impressed just with the fact that this patient had been shot in the head and was still conscious. And she did have a severe shot. It wasn't like it was a glancing blow. It passed right through her skull.
Looks like we got a bullet lodged in the jaw here. You know where you're at right now, Candace?
Yeah, I'm at work.
The first police officer on the scene was Bon Gonzalez.
Have you ever seen him before, Candace?
I worked with him right here.
She knew who he was. They had worked for the same restaurant in the past.
Set up a crime scene log and everything.
Within like 5 minutes to 10 minutes after this happened, we were sending officers to his past addresses.
120. Keep spitting that blood out, Candace.
It was obvious that she hit a large artery or vein, and I was concerned that her airway was going to be compromised. So what I opted to do was just get her down on the ground on all fours.
Candace's mother, Gloria Crossland, heard about the shooting on her police scanner.
They wouldn't tell me who was shot, so I sneaked around to the front window and found out it was Candace. I mean, I was petrified.
So it was horrible, you know, because here's this 20-some-year-old who's doing all these things to better her community and, you know, working a terrible job, making terrible wages, no insurance, no benefits. And something like this happens. This jerk. I think he got, you know, $1,500 or some measly sum like that. You know, what's the point?
I had seen the blood and her on the stretcher. And I thought, oh my God. She was born 6 months after her father died. And it's just one of those things. You're close that way.
22-year-old Candace Crossland was taken by Samaritan Air Evac helicopter to Scottsdale Memorial Hospital and examined by emergency physician Pierre Gilles.
The bullet traversed across to the right side of her neck, close to her windpipe. She was fortunate that the initial effect of the gunshot wound did not kill her.
Okay, that's good.
She was equally fortunate that the swelling effects and the blast effects also did not leave her with any permanent neurologic injury.
Doctors spent hours in surgery repairing her damaged carotid artery. After 4 days, Candace was released from the hospital. More than a year has passed since the shooting.
The bullet is under the fatty tissue, under my chin. And it just sits there, it doesn't move, just sits there. It's kind of hard, it feels like a pee.
You're out, give me the ball. No, I'll sit there.
You're out, give me the ball. I'm a little more paranoid, but I still work in prevention, at-risk kids, because I don't think that it's fair to them to take away what they need from me.
She still works at the restaurant, and she's going to college next semester. She wants to be a teacher on the reservation, so she's going on the way up.
The suspect was subsequently convicted of armed robbery and attempted second-degree murder and sentenced to 29 years in prison.
If he's in his late 50s, by the time he gets out, that's justice for me, because I'll be in my late 50s too, and hopefully a little bit forget about this by the time I'm 50.
I asked her, want to come and help me put wallpaper?
Yeah,
she goes, no, I get my house in 2 weeks.
If she hadn't made it through this ordeal, I'd been devastated. They'd have probably taken me to Arizona State Hospital.
If it hadn't been for 911, she would have died, because they were there that quick. They saved her, they put her on a helicopter, they took her where she needed to go, and it was still touchy after that, but she made it, because it was Candace. The fact that she had the strength to go and call 911 herself, this hole in her neck, bullet in her face, was just unreal to me. Definitely a hero. Definitely. Without a doubt.
In main menu. In home, tip I live button. See it. CDF. And this. T. Dis. What. Baby. Zoom up. Hop. M. Game. Free. Fox. Move. Film. Nick. ABs. YouTube button. Launching YouTube.
The minute of every day, another baby is born prematurely, and new parents worry that.
Okay, now I did all the Rescue 911 videos on Tiki Live, and see on my Roku it's 10:30 at night. Now I'm gonna go up front and put the Rescue 911 episodes that are more recent. So I had to take my iPad out of the holder. Ugh. Let's see.
Today on Rescue 911, restaurant terror. An armed robbery leaves fast food employees fighting for their lives.
He's running at you and he has a gun in his hand.
Be there when one man makes a heroic escape to save his co-workers. Then, a fire and ambulance dispatcher takes a call.
I think my heart probably dropped into my stomach.
That turns out to be her worst nightmare. On Rescue 911.
On the evening of April 18, 1991, at a fast food restaurant in Bakersfield, California, Patty Fainer and two fellow employees were just getting ready to close up for the night.
It was about 10 o'clock at night, and I was doing the dishes. Sandy was cleaning the grill, and Dave was sweeping the dining room. There were no customers at all, and it had been pretty slow for like about 30 minutes.
At 9:55 p.m., a call came into Bakersfield Police Dispatcher Andrea Gatton.
911. I need the police. Armed robbery in progress. Where at? Meter Smith's on. What?
We get so many routine type of calls that when something in progress or life-threatening happens, it sometimes catches you off guard.
Does the guy have a gun? Yeah, I was out front sweeping. He didn't see me. He just took somebody to the back with a gun to their head. Okay, hold on. I want you to calm down and think of a description while I get this call going.
I was in fear for the employee that he said the suspect had a gun to her head, but at that particular moment, my main concern was him and getting the officers out there.
When we continue.
He's running at you and he has a gun in his hand? He just got off the phone. Okay.
When the phone went dead, I thought he'd been shot.
Our pal Walker has some new buddies he wants you to meet.
You're not gonna use a gun.
First order, 2 Baker 12, whatever, Fortune 15 copy. Wearing a baseball cap, what color shirt?
I just caught a glimpse of him. I believe it was a sweatshirt. I'm not real sure.
What color?
Gray, I believe.
He was holding an employee with a gun?
Yes, he had the gun to the back of her head, and he took her into the back room immediately. I don't think he saw me.
And he started walking us back towards the safe. When we got about to the drive-through window, he told Sandy that she had 2 tries to open the safe.
I think he might have come in through our drive-through window. The back door is locked. There is a male watching me from the parking lot.
Okay, where are you calling me from?
From the payphone in the parking lot. This is the second time we've been hit. Last time he had an accomplice waiting in the same position. He's watching me right now. He's coming up to me with a mask on his face.
I got real excited. My adrenaline got going, and I got really scared for that man.
The guy's coming up to you with a mask on his face?
Yes, and he's running at me. He has
okay, he's running at you and he has a gun in his hand?
Sir, he just got off the phone.
Okay.
When the phone went dead, I thought he'd been shot. Usually we're on the phone with people till the officers arrive. This time I had no idea if he was going to be alive when the officers got there. I didn't think he would.
7-0, having the units responding like he's no longer landline. Advised the suspect was running at him with the firearm. Advised him if he didn't get off the phone, he'd shoot. No further.
Among the officers who responded was Patrolman Jack Smith.
A lot of things go through your mind going to calls like this. If I come in too quick and he sees me inside, then I'm going to have a hostage situation. I'm going to have to deal with him. If they're fleeing, what's going to happen to me then? Am I going to let these two armed gunmen get away from me?
Right about this time, a customer came to the drive-thru. I didn't know whether to take the order or not, so I just went ahead and took my chances. Sandy couldn't open his safe.
Too nervous. I've got the combination. I'll give it to you. I can't get it open.
He told her, you have one more try. After 3 or 4 tries, she finally opened it. I thought about signaling to the customers, but what could they do? They were outside and I was inside. I'd be dead before they had a chance to get in.
Lyle Martin was the first officer on the scene.
Just as I reached the back of the business, 2 subjects come running out.
Suspect ran northbound on the east side of Alberton.
He was scared, and he was just a look of disbelief, like, no way. The police are here.
Almost simultaneously, the Cook County Sheriff's helicopter arrived. With the gunshot first went off, I thought either Officer Martin had shot at one of the suspects, or the suspects had shot at me because I was coming up in the car. At that time, I know the suspects had fired a shot here, so I put out a little radio, be very careful, these guys have guns, and they open fire on somebody. As the helicopter searched over, I could see there was a 9mm handgun laying on top of the brick wall that the suspect could just climb. I could also see there was an expended casing on the ground, so I knew that they just capped off the round. This guy looked just like something you see out of the movies. He still had the bandana on his face, just like a train robber. And he was in a pile of money. I told him that next time you run from police, take your finger off the trigger when you climb those brick walls, then you won't shoot yourself. And he groaned or something, but he wasn't very happy.
Bakersfield police units searched the area for the second suspect, including Officer Renee Chow.
I saw was wearing a black sports type jacket, fit description. At that point, I ordered him to place his hands up and took him into custody. him were brought to his location where they viewed him and identified him as one of the suspects.
The two suspects were subsequently convicted of robbery and sentenced to prison. All three employees of the fast food restaurant survived the incident unharmed. For shift manager Sandy Logan, it wasn't easy coming to grips with what happened.
After the whole night was over, I went home, talked to my husband, and we cried. I was scared out of my mind. I really thought I wasn't going to get through that evening. I think the police officers did a fantastic job. As far as I'm concerned, they got there in the nick of time, just in time to catch them.
I think Dave's the hero. Most people would have just ran. I would if I would have ran somewhere and called the cops from somewhere else, you know.
Dave Yerix doesn't regret the choice he made that night.
I guess you don't know what you're going to do in a situation until it happens, but here he is taking them to the back, and you've only got like a second or two to decide what you're going to do. So I just instantly made a choice. Go to the phone, call the police, get this thing stopped before anything happened. I kind of surprised myself the way I reacted. It let me know that I wouldn't just fall up on the floor and panic, that I would at least do something.
Next,
the brutal part of it, looking at his eyes and not seeing anybody looking back.
Meet Melanie, the hopeless romantic.
He's a plumber. Oh, right?
Millie Craig has been a fire and ambulance dispatcher for 9 years in the small town of Kingwood, Texas. In that time, she's handled almost every kind of emergency call imaginable. On July 1st, 1989, for the first time, Millie handled a dispatcher's worst nightmare.
I was working the morning shift, the Saturday of the 4th of July weekend, and like most Saturdays, the first half of the shift was extremely slow.
At her home a mile away, Millie's son David was visiting from out of town with his fiancée, Cynthia Dable.
I go outside, Dad normally cuts the front yard first, then he cut the back. You know, so he came over, sat down, so we were sitting in lawn chairs, and then Cynthia came outside. So just talking about whatever, my new job, or Cynthia might get married, or something. I mean, there was so much happening, we couldn't help but be excited about it. I wasn't really looking at him, I was kind of in thought. And I heard his glass of water drop, and he went into what I explained as a series of seizures.
Obie Craig's heart had stopped beating. Millie was the only dispatcher on duty that morning.
Okay, dispatch. Mr. Craig, Mr. Craig is something. He's having a stroke or a heart attack or something. Okay. Okay, all right, goodbye.
Mike! You got a call. It's at my house.
She had to remain at her post.
At the very end of the phone call, the personal emotion started to hit me. I think my heart probably dropped into my stomach. I couldn't leave until another dispatcher showed up. We have 36,000 people out here. Somebody else could have had a problem.
Kathy Splendido and her husband had just finished breakfast when Millie's call of a possible cardiac arrest came over their pagers.
There was an intensity in her voice that I had never heard before in 9 years. And I thought, it's somebody we know. My heart was on a mile a minute because it takes a really gutsy person to stand ground when she knows that her husband is home, maybe dying.
It's time, and you know it's time, and you lean over, and you're fixing to do CPR on a human being. And he felt cold, and he had all the signs. You know, the eyes way back in his head, turning purple, and his muscles are still contracted. I mean, but they don't tell you about all that. They don't tell you that it's going to be rough on you.
I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know how serious it was. But I knew it was serious from David's tone of voice when he was yelling into the phone. It was beginning to sink into me that he may be dead. And, you know, there was nothing I could do.
David did the CPR, and I was just standing there watching, and it was weird because you could see Mr. Craig, the violent motions had stopped. He lay very still, and at that moment, I got the vision of him in a coffin, and it really scared me.
Paramedics Neil Botting and Mike Lagudas had been at the station when Millie got the call.
Normally, you don't treat one cardiac any different than you do another, but the situation with this one being the person that I knew, there were a lot of things going through my mind. Were we going to be able to reverse the problem and bring him back? And the other thing that was going through my mind is what if we didn't?
I raced up to the station and went in and said something sweet like, "Millie, go home." And she left. And then I sat down at the console and dispatched the location once more. Mike Lagudas was the paramedic on duty. When he heard my voice as opposed to Millie's voice, then and only then did he announce that CPR was in progress, because he didn't want to say that while she was sitting at the console.
CPR in progress. CPR in progress.
We continued CPR until we set up our defibrillator. Upon taking the reading through the paddles, we determined that Mr. Craig was in ventricular fibrillation and delivered a shock of 200 joules, which is the minimum starting delivery for an adult who's in cardiac arrest. I had the big fear that he wasn't going to make it, and I didn't quite know how I was going to deal with that with respect to Millie being such a close friend, her husband being such a close friend, and being able to tell her this.
He went out of defibrillation, and he went into a very slow idioventricular rhythm, and it did not generate a pulse. So CPR was resumed while we got set to start an intravenous line and start to administer some cardiac drugs.
It had been more than 5 minutes since Ovi's heart had stopped beating.
We, at that point, saw what was a treatable rhythm with additional CPR and medications. So things were looking up at that point.
When I walked up the drive, David was walking down the drive to meet me and said something like, "You don't want to go up there." And I said, "Yes, I thought that I did."
1, 2, 3, let's go up.
I'm not sure at what point I realized that they had shocked his chest, and I don't know at what point I knew that they had done CPR. And he was all looking around, and his eyes were all red with bloodshot. And I spoke to him, and he sort of looked at me, but I knew he didn't see me.
11 minutes after his devastating heart attack, O.V. was fully conscious.
He just woke up. That's a hard concept for me, because Cynthia and I witnessed the brutal part of it. I mean, watching him being fight for life. And his heart stopped. He went to the hospital. They did the heart catheterization. He's laying in the hospital. That's nothing. Looking at his eyes and not seeing anybody looking back is the part that they don't ever tell you about. And that night, you know, they said, "Well, y'all can go home." And I said, "Well, I can't." So I spent the night. Here I'd saved his life. I knew it. The doctors had told me. But I knew it. And I wanted to make sure that I knew that he was okay.
54-year-old O.V. Craig's sudden death heart attack caused no muscle damage to his heart. With medication, he can lead a normal life.
You kind of like for your child to feel a little indebted to you as he grows up, and you want him to feel a little, my father did this for me, and he did that for me, and he does feel that way. But then all of a sudden, the situation turns, and now I owe him my life. My son had not done the CPR, Cynthia had not made the call. My wife dispatched the paramedics.
has been a fire and ambulance dispatcher for 9 years.
You know, today I gave him a hug. And I can't.
If you are interested in learning CPR, contact the nearest chapter of the American Red Cross.
Today on Rescue 911, underwater nightmare, trapped in a swimming pool drain.
That arm was underneath his left leg, stuck.
A young boy fights for his life.
His lips were blue. He was dying.
Be there when a lifeguard attempts mouth-to-mouth underwater. Then, an Atlanta fire leaves panic-stricken victims.
You see all this clear air out there.
Plunging from high-rise windows on Rescue 911.
We begin on a summer day in 1988 when Michael Hike left his house in New Iberia, Louisiana, to go for a swim. An actor doubles for Michael, but the rest of the people have returned to help us reconstruct his story. Eugenie Hike had given her 9-year-old son Michael permission to join his friends at the local pool. It was 16-year-old Heath Wallace's first summer as a lifeguard at the Iberia Golf and Country Club.
That was our only lifeguard on duty. The lifeguard stands are high, so you can watch the whole pool area.
I decided I had to go run some errands. On the way, I stopped at the country club.
You want to come with me?
Okay, but don't go home until I come back.
Michael's mother was 8.5 months pregnant with her third child.
I figured if he was having such a good time with his friends, I was going to let him stay. So I said, be careful. I'll be back.
But Michael's friends soon had to go home.
Time to go. Gotta be there in 5 minutes. Let's go. Bye, Mike.
Alone in the big pool, Michael soon got bored and cold. But the 18-inch deep baby pool was always much warmer.
It was about 4:30 in the afternoon. While watching the baby pool, I noticed a 9 or 10-year-old person in the baby pool. I decided I wanted a Coke, so I walked from the lifeguard stand to the snack bar outside.
He was very heavy, very taut, and we were all very scared.
Hey, guess what? Every Saturday this...
What? You think people are really gifted in these commercials?
Very taut, and
What? You think people are really
anybody. I really think they will.
These calls are going right away to give. Thank you.
School's in session with the Steve Harvey Show, weekdays at 7 on Get TV.
Walking back to my lifeguard stand, I heard the scream for help. His left arm was underneath his left leg, stuck into the drain. His head was about 6 inches under the water. His eyes were open, his lips were blue. He was dying.
When he heard the boy was in trouble, Bobby Bolden was with golf pro Eric Indest.
I couldn't visualize how it could happen until I went outside. Immediately, Bobby Bolden jumped in the baby pool. The lifeguard was trying to give Michael mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
He was very heavy, very taut, and we were all very scared.
The boy's arm had been sucked into the drain.
I went to the pump and turned it off. Then I ran back into the clubhouse to get something to bail the pool. It wouldn't take very long just to get the water below the level of his mouth so that he could breathe on his own.
The call for help came in at 4:42 p.m.
Time was really of the essence. We were not going to have a whole lot of time if this young man was going to have any kind of a chance to survive.
2 ambulances were dispatched immediately. Ed Murray was the senior paramedic.
In a situation where there's a potential drowning, we want to anticipate a cardiac arrest situation. So we generally send 2 ambulances.
Me having my arms around his chest could tell immediately that he was not getting an expansion in Michael's chest. At that point, I told him his air passage was blocked. I remember that from Boy Scout. Clear the airways. At which point we got a good expansion in his chest.
I remember Mr. Bobby telling me to keep on breathing for him. I just heard, keep on, don't quit. I didn't hear nothing, see anything but Michael and Mr. Bobby.
In a matter of 2.5, 3 minutes, he became more buoyant. We could feel now that he was breathing. Shortly before that, he bit me. I almost wanted to cry, but I realized his problems were a lot greater than my own.
Once Michael was breathing, they managed to untangle him from the drain.
I reached down into the water, grabbed him by his right knee, and I kind of gave it a little quarter turn, and he popped right up.
Mr. Bobby picked up Michael, and at that time I was already backed off, up against the side, scared. I thought I did something wrong.
No one knew exactly how much time Michael had been trapped under the water, but they feared it had been too long.
The boy was unresponsive to any sort of stimuli. He did have some fluid inside his lung. I was very concerned because it can cause a very serious complication called aspergillus pneumonia. Also, because he had a loss of consciousness due to lack of oxygen, my concern at that time was certainly about brain damage.
When the paramedics arrived, it was such a strange feeling that we had just been through this, the 3 of us, and it was strange. I sat down near the pool and just cried my eyes out.
I just stayed my life firsthand, and I didn't watch him close enough. I should have prevented the accident before it happened. I close my eyes and I just see his face, what he looked like in the water. The eyes, the blue lips, cold look. Couldn't get that out of my head.
On the way before I got back to the country club, there was an ambulance. So I pulled over for the ambulance and I said, gosh, I hope whoever's in there is okay. Not knowing that my son's in there.
En route to the hospital, he didn't regain consciousness. I was worried about cardiac complications and the fluid in his lungs at that point.
Can you hear me? Michael, look, you've been in an accident. We're taking you to the hospital. Michael, can you hear me?
I couldn't believe it, because I had just seen him. I had guilt feelings. I was so sorry. And Michael was just like such a perfect child. I became really frantic and I said, we've got to find Morris. We've got to find Morris.
Immediately felt like, the worst. I thought my kid was dead.
I was just in denial, telling myself he was going to be fine. You know, I was asking the nurses, why are you doing all this? And they said, because we have to see how much fluid is in his lungs. And depending on that is whether or not his brain's going to start swelling, which means he'd have brain damage.
Everybody got a chance to go see him. And then I got a chance to go see him. I said, like, I love you, Michael. And, like, when I say it usually, I really don't mean it. But that time, I really meant it.
We met the doctor that is in charge. He said, I think your son is going to be fine. The lifeguard that gave your son artificial respiration, mouth-to-mouth, saved his life. You need to really thank him for it.
I didn't think I deserved to be congratulated. I was just doing my job.
The young lifeguard has become friends with Michael and his family.
The cutest thing that came out of this for me was, at that time, I had become a candidate for mayor. I got a phone call from Michael. And he wanted to be my campaign agent.
Bobby Bolden was elected mayor of New Iberia. Michael was released from the hospital after 2 days. There was no brain damage.
When I was under there, I was thinking that my mom was going to have a baby in about a month. And I was thinking, you know, will I ever be able to see this baby? Where will it be and all? And then everything just blacked out.
3.5 weeks after the accident, Michael's baby sister Eugenie was born.
Every once in a while, anytime, any place I'll be driving along, it'll hit me that I could be driving along right now and not have my son anymore, and I'll get a little melancholy, but it's almost a feeling of gratitude that you can't put into words. I've thanked them, but I could never thank them enough. Could never thank them enough.
Next.
I knew where they were going to. When you can't get air and you see all this clear air out there, is the one with.
Sixth floor of a sealed high-rise. Most of the footage you will see was shot by local camera people as the desperate events of that summer morning unfolded.
Yes, we have a fire on 1710 East Street, northwest of Buckhead. There are people trapped in the building. What's going on? We can't tell. They're throwing things out the windows.
The first call for help came in at 10:30 a.m. There would be 20 more. A chain of 4 electrical explosions in a 10-story office building had set off a fire. Dozens of people on the 6th floor were trapped almost immediately.
When I seen those people in that window, I knew what they were going through, because it's very easy to panic. When you're breathing, you can't get air, and you see all this clear air out there, is the one way to get it, and that's to jump.
Michael Blackman was in an office on the south side of the building.
There was such a cold, stark realization all of a sudden that we're trapped, and there's no way out. And I think we all the people I was with, we all thought we were dead. I just picked up the chair my chair from my desk and threw it through glass. Several of us were there at the window, gasping for air. One of the women, Cassandra, apparently didn't have any more oxygen in her lungs, and I guess the natural response is to get to where there's oxygen, and so she climbed out as though she were trying to climb out on a ledge, but there was really no ledge there, and she fell. None of us saw it coming, or certainly someone would try to stop her.
I felt fright, you know, for them and plus for myself. And not knowing what state of mind they're in at that time after seeing one of their co-workers plunge to the ground.
1 I remember stopping about a third of the way down and just holding on tight and taking a big gulp of air, and it was real sweet. And of course, at that point, we didn't know that any others had found a way to get out, so that it was still a pretty black moment.
This was a 5-alarm fire. It involved 15 engines, 9 truck companies, 4 command teams, 4 rescues, our squad unit, air unit, a total of 134 men on the scene at one time. We've seen mass casualty incidents that were not of this magnitude. On a scale of 1 to 10, this was a 10.
The last person brought out of the hole that Michael Blackman had broken in the side of the building was Eudora Rogers.
We knew that she was unconscious when we brought her out, but we didn't realize, we didn't know how bad she was. We knew that we had to get her out. All the way down the ladder, I mean, it was something that I had never experienced anything like that before in my life. I had never, did any kind of rescue like that. It seemed like every time I looked behind me, I had just that much further to go. I don't know, I just felt the closest to her. I really did.
I had seen them bring Eudora out, and I knew she didn't look good. I didn't know if she was alive or not at that point. There was no question in my mind, but if she was alive, she was in very serious condition.
Eudora was revived at the scene, but died 3 days later in the hospital, a victim, like most fire fatalities, of smoke and toxic gases. On the back side of the building, in an area ladders could not reach, Solomon Williams had managed to drag his unconscious friend to a window and break it out.
Okay, we got a helicopter coming. We got a work team going. We can't get a ladder back.
When I came down the stairwell, I looked up and I saw him hanging in the window with his buddy. And that touched my heart. Because here's a guy that, was near death and hanging on to a friend. There's no one to help him.
I know, being a veteran firefighter, that people will jump because you cannot stand the intense heat and fire. Anything is better than that. I also know the fact that I had an excellent company working on another front that was 30 yards away from it, fighting 1,000-degree heat that was determined to reach him. Those men on that floor, I say with all honesty and sincerity, would have died before they come out.
I went on to the window and got to him, and I said, partner, I can't take both of you. I can just take you right now. Let's sit him down on the floor, and we'll come right back for him. He hooked his arm around my BA, and I grabbed the back of his belt, and then we took off. I just followed my hose out.
Solomon was taken to the hospital, where he was treated for seared lungs and smoke inhalation.
What he did for the gentleman that he was holding there and then cradled in his arms, there's just not too many people like that I know of that would go through the pain and suffering that he did. He grabbed somebody and he went through a lot of pain and the victim didn't live. There's nobody to pat him on the back and say he did a good job, but he did. I mean, he did more than I did up there. He's a man that's just amazing to me.
Breaking the windows out is what saved their lives. If they hadn't done that, they would all perished. And as Chief Perrin spoke, if there had been a sprinkler system, might have only been one death.
Eudora was one of the most special people I've ever known, and myself and several others have realized how much we benefited from having known her, and it almost overcomes the pain of losing her. Seeing Cassandra there with her eyes open and seeing all those people up there alive in that window, amidst all that pain and terror, those really were special, just beautiful moments. They really were.
20-year-old Cassandra Hayward somehow managed to survive her 6-story fall.
after the incident when I really regained conscious. And at times when I was in the hospital, there were times when I would just lay there and think to myself, is this really, am I really here? You know, it's still hard to believe because, I mean, when you think about what all has happened, it's really a miracle.
In my 12 years working for EMS, I've never seen a patient jump that far and survive.
Let me just kind of...
Cassandra broke both legs, her pelvis, and had severe internal injuries. But doctors feel certain that with therapy, she will walk again.
19, one more, 20.
I thank God that I am here and doing as well as I am and can return to a normal life someday.
Solomon Williams is trying to rebuild his life.
That would just help from so many people. I mean, we got, it's just unbelievable. It's how people did things. Even up to, say, yesterday, a lady from Marietta, Georgia, came down with a teddy bear with my initials in the chest, a ladder, which I told her I wish I had when I was in the window. I mean, it was unreal. She said she just had that make it up for me.
I really felt like I had done something. I just wanted to walk around with my chest out and thinking that, you know, I'd really done something. Okay, it's really a good feeling, you know, that you were a part of saving somebody's life.
Michael Blackman and the others have already gone back to work in the same building where the fire occurred.
It was miraculous that we got out. I feel blessed. I feel like I've got a second chance. Whether it's really a miracle or just good luck, I don't know, but it was certainly fortunate for those of us that did get out.
5 people died as a result of the fire, but more than 24 others owe their lives to the Atlanta Fire Department.
Today on Rescue 911, terror at home. An unsuspecting child opens the door to his mother's attacker.
I couldn't push him off. I couldn't do anything.
Witness her courageous attempt to stop him. Then, a boat race turns deadly.
5-point harness with release.
Dive in with the rescue team.
You've been underwater at least 2 to 3 minutes without oxygen.
On Rescue 911.
In emergency centers around the country, our urgent calls for help are answered as quickly as possible. But when even that is not fast enough, we are forced to depend on our own ingenuity. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of unlikely heroes and tragic twists of fate on Rescue 911. Early on the morning of Friday, May 5th, 1989, a young woman we'll call Karen walked out of her apartment in Tucson, Arizona, with her 2.5-year-old son, Eric.
It was about 7 o'clock. Me and my son Eric went to the laundromat that's inside the apartment complex to do our laundry. Go home and fix your breakfast, okay? Stay right here and play with your airplane. My mom goes down, okay?
Karen's husband had already gone to work. She had a few more chores to do before leaving for work herself.
And we dropped off the laundry and then we were coming back to the apartment. And I noticed a kid on the second floor apartment. And he looked at me. And then we just looked away and kept walking.
somebody knocked on the door and I answered it, and it was that kid. And he said, I'm bored, I don't have anything to do, can I come in? And I said, no, I'm getting ready for work. So I shut the door and I locked it. I went and I got a shower.
When we continue.
I didn't know I was gonna have a second chance to dial a number, because I was scared. And if I screwed it up, I wouldn't get another chance.
If you can't pick your family, you might as well laugh about it.
Perfect.
Wild horses wouldn't drag me away from
Service plan from American Residential Warranty.
Call now. There's no obligation. But hurry, if you wait until you need a home service repair,
It'll be too late.
Call 1-800-931-8129. Again, that's 1-800-931-8129 or log on to getahomeplan.com today.
Join the Bunkers for some family time. All in the Family, weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern.
I couldn't do anything. And then I looked and my little boy was in the closet, hiding in a box in the corner. And then I was saying, not here, you know, not in front of my son. And then I reached for Eric.
Thinking quickly, Karen then managed to convince her attacker that she had to call work and warn them she'd be late.
And then he bent down to watch the numbers I was dialing.
So closely watched, she could not dial 911.
And so I dialed my friend Scott's number, because I was scared. And I wanted somebody to come. And nobody was going to be coming home for a long time.
The way her voice was, I could tell there was something wrong. And she said she couldn't make it to work. So I asked her if she was okay. She said no. I asked her if she wanted me to come over. And she said, yeah, she did want me to come over.
Because Karen couldn't say what was wrong in front of her attacker, Scott didn't know what to expect.
I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I didn't know what was going on.
Karen was still pretending she was on the phone with someone at the place where she worked. But when her assailant wasn't looking, she quietly hung up and redialed 911.
I didn't know if I was going to have a second chance to dial a number, because I was scared. And if I screwed it up, I wouldn't get another chance.
911, what is the emergency? Is this where I work at? What's wrong, ma'am? I'm supposed to be at work right now. Okay? I can't leave the house right now. What's wrong? Is somebody there? Yeah. Okay. I want you to stay on the line and talk to the police. Don't hang up, okay?
It was something that you could feel, something that you felt across the phone line. It just slapped you in the face, something was wrong.
I'm going to stay on the line with you until I answer. Don't hang up.
As soon as Karen's call went through to the police, her name and address automatically came up on the screen.
And I'm supposed to be going to work in a few minutes, and I can't go right now because I have some problems at home right now.
Okay. You need an officer sent out?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you telling me something like that you don't want somebody else to hear?
Right.
Okay. Is there a man there?
Yeah.
Your boyfriend?
No.
Husband?
No.
Is this person armed?
No.
Is he standing right next to you?
Yeah.
Are you in immediate danger? Is he a dangerous person?
Yeah.
Okay, but he does not have any weapons.
Right.
Okay. Do you think if I let you go, get off the phone, are you going to be okay for a few minutes?
I don't know.
If I keep you on the phone, you may get suspicious, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay. We'll get some help out to you in just a few moments. Okay. 45 no.
Thank you.
Police operator Evelyn Niegra immediately coded Karen's call and passed it to dispatch.
She didn't say who it was, and she couldn't tell us.
On patrol in the area, police trainee Mike Strong and Officer James Williamson were the first to respond to the call.
The dispatcher was almost at a loss for words. I could feel her hesitancy, I could feel her concern. From what she was saying, I knew that we had something very unusual.
I felt a little better. I knew the police were coming. And then I heard Scott's truck music, and I said, "Now you're in trouble, that's my husband." And then I went to run towards my front door.
She met me halfway between my truck and her apartment, screaming, hold the door, don't let him out." So I told her, "Take my keys, sit in my truck, and no matter what, do not unlock the door."
Still unsure what had happened, Karen's friend Scott went into her apartment as police officers arrived at the front of the complex.
We weren't sure exactly where the apartment was. The last word we had, the suspect was still in the area. We didn't want to spook him, so we parked out front and came through on foot.
I saw a guy standing at the door that I'd never seen before. He followed me right out the door to my truck. When she saw both of us, she just went crazy. She started screaming and started chasing me. He went into the apartment and I didn't follow him in. I went back to the apartment and called 911 back.
Officers arrested an 18-year-old suspect at the scene. He was subsequently convicted of kidnapping and sexual assault.
What I thought the victim did in this case was extraordinary. A tragic situation was thrust upon her. Present during the assault was a young child, her child, which gave her probably more concern. The situation that presented itself to the victim in this case was ultimately won by her because she used her wits. She didn't panic.
What she did was excellent. She thought very quickly, and she took a chance that she would be able to get help.
Months have gone by. Karen is getting counseling, and she and her family have made permanent changes in the way they live their lives.
Every night before my little boy goes to bed, he says he's scared, and I have to sit on the edge of the bed with him. Tells me he's afraid. But when I ask him why, he said, "That man will come back." I think that when you have kids, you have to have locks high enough for them not to be able to reach them, so that you know who comes in and who goes out. And if somebody knocks on the door, I look through the people, and if I don't recognize them, I just won't answer the door.
I think she was very brave. I mean, that has to be a terrifying experience, and she thought of something to do and did it. Her child was there. It had to be very terrifying. She's very brave.
Next,
being thrown out of a boat at 110 miles an hour and hitting water is like hitting a concrete wall.
without injury. But when a racer does need help, the Star Rescue Team is on the scene within seconds.
There has been a lot of drivers that have refused to race if we're not there. You know, one of the problems is they've got to where they have so much trust in us sometimes that they might push a little too hard.
The stars include firefighters, paramedics, and divers, all volunteers who travel around the country providing emergency services at racing events. On August 12, 1989, Chuck Walker was scheduled to compete in St. Louis, assisted by his friend Charlie Ivora.
I drove the van and the boat up to St. Louis, and Chuck flew up that weekend.
Chuck's wife was not at the races that day.
We were all real excited for him, and I went to all the races, and he's always done good, but this race, both of us weren't able to go. You know, I was really scared not to go, because I was afraid something could happen if we didn't go.
Charlie helped Chuck make his final preparations.
It was his first IOGP race, and he was a little worried about that, but he's very competitive, and you know, he knows one speed, and that's all out. You know, he went back out of it. You don't want nobody to pass him. The race was getting ready to start, and the official comes around. We go through a visual inspection, safety harnesses, setting Chuck in a boat, strapping him in, make sure everything's all right before we get it out on the water.
The race was a qualifying heat for the 1989 World Championship Grand Prix.
Seconds and the flag is up. They're under starter's orders. Jeff Titus, official starter, IOGB, and down goes the flag. And number 37, Chuck Walker, Boca Raton, Florida. He gets a late start away from the dock.
Chuck had to start a few seconds after everybody else left, but as soon as he took off from the dock, then he passed about 5 boats. Really, he was running real strong. The boat was running real good.
One of the star rescue divers that day was Buddy Kamen.
We had 4 rescue craft on the course. I was on turn 4 and started out to be a real good day. Chuck didn't get a real good start, but he was coming on around.
And fire goes to the inside, and that puts number 50, Glenn Reynolds, up in second place. And oh, we got one over down here. That was the late starting number 37, Chuck Walker.
The accident looked like a training accident almost. It was so slow. At that point, I thought, before I can enter the water, he'll be out of the boat.
Anytime we have an accident, we stop the race immediately. And then we have the closest boat to the accident respond in.
And all the boats have come to a stop. The red flags are out.
My craft responded. I was in the water in approximately 15 seconds from the time the accident happened. I went down the first time, and Chuck Walker was conscious at this time. He took his helmet off, and he grabbed my hand and put it on his harness. He was thrashing about. He struck my regulator. I could not take any air from it.
Buddy's regulator was broken. Neither one could use it.
Another diver, 2 divers go in the water.
By the time the second diver got to the driver's capsule with his air supply, Chuck was unconscious.
After 30 to 45 seconds, I was getting real concerned, because they should have had him out by then, you know, or he should have been able to get out by himself by then.
As the crowd watched, divers, including Clay Engel, struggled to release Chuck's harness.
As I entered the water, I knew they had a problem out of the ordinary. So I was already prepared for the worst. You could tell he was unconscious, his eyes were slightly open, and he wasn't breathing. As soon as I realized that we couldn't get the belts undone underwater, I immediately went back up and hollered for somebody to hand me the seatbelt cutters. It was a bad situation. Tensions were up. We still wasn't sure on the extent of his physical injuries. So the quicker I can get him out, the better, or they'll start the drowning process.
It happened right in front of the crowd and right in front of the judges' stand. And I remember during the rescue not hearing anything. It just seemed like it was deathly quiet.
It was taking too long to cut Chuck out of the jammed harness.
When I saw him like that, instantly a timer went off in my mind. Okay, time is a factor. You know, let's do what we have to do. It's hard to get him out upside down because buoyancy and everything will keep him pushed up in there.
Above the water, they were trying to flip the 1,400-pound boat.
We need to hurry up and get this boat turned over, or this guy's gonna die. You know, when you got a life in balance like that, minutes seem like hours.
We rolled the boat over. Clay was still with him at that time, cutting the safety harness out. At that point, he was non-breathing. I started artificial respiration on him.
I thought he was dead when they pulled him out. His eyes were rolled back in his head. He was purple as can be, and he wasn't moving.
Paramedic Randy Sammons coordinated from the shore.
We felt we had something pretty bad because we'd been underwater at least 2 to 3 minutes without oxygen, so we were preparing for the worst. They came to shore, the patient was cyanotic and was having a full-blown seizure. His seizures was full body, arms and legs, just thrashing around uncontrollably. Seizures can be caused by many things. This particular instance, I feel it was due to the anoxia, which is the lack of oxygen, which he had because he was underwater for that length of time.
They began treating him with oxygen immediately.
I knew we had a pretty good chance to revive him, even though he'd been under the water that long.
I thought I was going to have to come back and tell his wife that he was dead, but I got a little relief when I seen the doctor stick her head out and give me a thumbs up.
By the time the ambulance left the scene, Chuck was breathing normally. He was taken to St. Anthony's Hospital for further treatment.
When I went up there Sunday, he wanted out so bad, you know, the doctor...
Without injury. But when a racer does need help, the Star Rescue Team is on the scene within seconds.
There has been a lot of drivers that have refused to race if we're not there. You know, one of the problems is they've got to where they have so much trust in us sometimes that they might push a little too hard.
The stars include firefighters, paramedics, and divers, all volunteers who travel around the country providing emergency services at racing events. On August 12, 1989, Chuck Walker was scheduled to compete in St. Louis, assisted by his friend Charlie Ivora.
I drove the van and the boat up to St. Louis, and Chuck flew up that weekend.
Chuck's wife was not at the races that day.
We were all real excited for him, and I went to all the races, and he's always done good, but this race, both of us weren't able to go. You know,
I had experience, but I feel like I'll be back next year. I'll be ready to do it till I'm, you know, 100% ready.
I like him racing, but when he's in a really bad accident, I really don't want him to race again because I think he's the best daddy in the whole wide world.
Today on Rescue 911, Highway Terror. An overturned truck traps a passenger inside and lets loose an 8-ton load of bees.
I didn't even notice the bees were on until they started stinging.
It's a rescuer's worst nightmare.
How many of these things does it take before you die?
Then, for one woman, a day at the movies could be her last act.
I knew she was in cardiac arrest.
On Rescue 911.
We begin on the night of June 4th, 1990, along a lonely stretch of road outside of Douglas, Georgia. Around 10:30 that night, Charles Day and his nephew Michael Brown were on their way to deliver an 8-ton load of beehives to a location 160 miles away.
You do on the weekend? You work all weekend?
Charles asking for a cigarette. Ain't no more.
He was like my cigarette, and I turned and looked out the window. And turned back around, that's when I seen the truck going toward a ditch. I went through the window, laid it on my head, and rolled. Finally, I heard him grunt. He's stuck in the truck, he can't get out. There was a car coming. Got somebody to go get the ambulance and the fire truck. I didn't even notice the bees were on me until they started stinging. Millions of them. It's just like they ain't nothing there but bees.
When we continue.
How many bee stings does it take before you die? I know Mr. Day was stung thousands of times.
Get ready to hit the trail all day Saturday.
Or illness. Don't be a financial burden to your family.
Sheriff's Deputy Evelyn Taylor arrived first, not knowing anything about the truck's cargo.
Can you imagine getting out of your car and 100,000 bees swarming towards your lights? I didn't realize at that time that the lights and the sirens just aggravated the bees more. The man was trapped in the truck and was receiving numerous bee stings constantly. The other guy said smoke would help keep the bees away from Mr. Day in the truck. And I give him what I had in the car, paper and stuff, to burn. They went into the car with me, stinging me. I started calling, letting everybody know that was responding to be prepared for multiple bee stings. And bees are dangerous, they can kill you.
Started smoking it and it wasn't helping none. There was too many and they was all mad.
Within 6 minutes of the call, paramedic Henry Lewis and EMT Johnny Knight arrived on the scene.
It was like any other wreck at first. The only thing that was different is the fact that he had 15 million honeybees in the back of it. The first problem is the fact that he was pinned in. To me, when he was down there for 5 minutes, he was down there too long. It looked like there was possible femur fracture, so you can have blood loss, plus bee stings. He was in a lot of trouble.
If the EMSs or firemen or anyone that was in that group that was allergic to bee stings, they knew not to get out of the vehicle.
Douglas City firefighter Waylon Moore and his partner arrived to begin the extrication. They tried to protect themselves by wearing full turnout gear, but it didn't work.
First time they hit my bald head, right up under that helmet. They started stinging me up under my coat, right around my eyes, my arms, got up my breeches.
Your ambulance is your best friend because there's everything you work with besides your knowledge. And you couldn't get near it.
I've had people pull guns on me. You can usually talk to them or else you can respond back with firepower. But these bees didn't respond to anything. How many bee stings does it take before you die? Nobody knows. I know Mr. Day was stung thousands of times.
By the time a second medic unit approached the scene, they knew to turn off their lights and siren. One paramedic who was allergic to bee stings stayed inside the ambulance, while his partner, Lamar Douglas, went to help.
Lamar was all gung-ho, ready to go down there. It didn't matter if it was bees or not. And I asked him just for his safety. I said, "Are you allergic to bees, Lamar?" He says, "I don't think so." Lamar was down there 30, 45 seconds. When he come back up the embankment, there were just bees all over the side of his face. He was flush red, couldn't talk. His eyes were kind of rolled up in his head, and he was in severe anaphylactic shock, the most severe one I've ever seen. It scared me, because I've worked with Lamar. I was scared that the airway would close, and that's the worst complication. Once it closes, it's hard to open it back up. He wasn't even on the scene for 5 minutes, and he was already the worst patient. We only had 2 units, 4-man crew, and one of them was going to be useless, Lamar, and the other guy was allergic to bees and knew it.
Mr. Day's father arrived. He went down to the bee truck and helped with them. I was thinking they wouldn't be able to get him out before he was dead.
By the time rescuers were able to free Charles, he had been pinned in the truck for almost an hour. Around the same time, a water truck they sent for finally arrived.
That helped a lot with the bees when we started spraying them. Calmed a lot of them down. They started going back towards the hives.
We really worked hard to keep Lamar from dying, and his heart rate's already in the 200s. I looked at Henry, and he just turned real pale. I was scared because we'd used all our medications for allergic reactions on Lamar.
All I could think about was we've given them all the drugs and I'm fixing to die.
Everybody got a series of shots, and you know, they assessed us real quick, and had to go back to work.
Paramedic Lamar Douglas and the driver of the truck, Charles Day, were admitted to Coffee Regional Hospital under the care of Dr. Romulo Navarro.
I was surprised that Lamar was still alive. This thing is sometimes even worse than a rattlesnake. You can die in 15 to 30 minutes if you develop an epileptic shock.
He's breathing. He's breathing. Okay, let's go.
Because Charles Day was a beekeeper for many years, he had a high tolerance to bee stings. He was treated for injuries suffered in the accident and released 4 days later.
Lamar, can you hear me?
Lamar Douglas was hospitalized for 8 days.
I woke up in the ICU about a day and a half later. The doctors have told me they didn't give me much chance of coming out of it. You know, that I was just a very lucky, paramedic.
Then it was sort of like cleanup time. We had to keep the road sealed off for several days due to the fact of the bees. Anyone riding through there, if they had their windows down, the bees would automatically attack.
In the 3 years that have passed, there have been a lot of changes in Charles Day's life.
I got completely out of the bee business. Since then, I've got married again.
In essence, the bees brought us together.
Charles moved to Florida after the accident, where he met Judy Mattis.
I wouldn't wish the wreck on anybody. If he hadn't had that and wasn't down here, I never would have met him. I might not be married. I might not be as happy as I am.
It just makes me think a little different about everything. Be a little more careful, help other people a little more. Everybody that was out there went through a lot that night trying to help get me out. And I'd like to say thanks to all of them.
Okay.
Paramedic Lamar Douglas developed encephalitis as a complication of his allergic reaction to the bee stings and was unable to return to work for 2 months.
Right now, personally, I just try to stay away from them. I carry extra medications to help me out in case I get into another situation like that. But I'm just very cautious. I don't run into scenes as fast as I used to.
Anything that would fly and make a buzzing sound didn't agree with me for a good while. We cannot do the patient any good if we become patients. But I really don't know how we could have prepared for it. I don't know if you can. I mean, how many times does a bee truck turn over?
Next.
My daughter tugged on my sleeve and said, "Is that lady snoring? She's breathing funny." I knew when I saw her that I needed to do something right away.
All right now, Get TV fans, don't be left in the dark. Get on board.
So getting protected is super easy. When you On November 1st, 1992, in Austin, Texas, Hazel Murvey decided to take in a movie with her friend, 77-year-old Beatrice Bowles.
I got acquainted with Beatrice when I moved into the apartment that I live in. And she's the first friend that I made there. And she's still my best friend right there. Maybe I shouldn't say that because I got other friends. It was a nice day. We just wanted to get out and we wanted to see this picture. The river runs through it.
How this long?
I'm going back to the bathroom.
We were watching the movie and Bee reached over and says, "I don't feel too good. I'm going to go to the bathroom."
Good. Now throw it away.
So it's for 1,000 years, it's not the place that we really going to change that position.
Are you all right?
I'm fine. Okay.
I kind of took hold of her hand and her hand was very, very cold.
Had you rather go home? No, I'll be all right in just a few minutes. Just in a few minutes.
Fast, quickly see food, and as often as you follow, so you get the
I think we better go home.
Bee.
Lisa Geibel and her two children were seated next to Beatrice.
My daughter tugged on my sleeve and said, "Mommy, is that lady snoring? She's breathing funny." I knew when I saw her that I needed to do something right away. My father had a pacemaker put in a year ago, and I was there when he had those attacks and scared me to death, and the similarity was striking to me.
Call 911.
Yes, this is over at the Arbor 7.
Yes, sir.
And there is a elderly female, slightly overweight.
Is she breathing right now?
I do not know.
Can you go check for me?
I
Or
will
is there
do
someone that you
that and get the information right back to you.
Okay.
Is anybody a doctor? Is anybody a doctor? Is there a doctor here?
I'm a nurse, can I help?
Finally, this man stood up and said, "I'm a nurse, can I help you?" And I said, "Yes." My emotional state was just panic.
Ma'am?
Dawn Ritchie, a licensed vocational nurse, assessed Beatrice.
The sound she was making was just a gurgle. There was no viable respirations. I knew she was in cardiac arrest.
From the back of the theater, medical student Quincy Ford noticed the commotion.
You do mouth to mouth, I'll do compression.
Y'all need some help?
I said, "Hey, I know CPR." And I had no idea who he was. We both just had this main goal, and that was to help this older woman.
1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. We'll switch on 5, 1,000.
I became tired. I started getting real dizzy in the head, and I let the man know that I didn't want to pass out on him.
No problem, continue CPR.
It's one thing to breathe into that CPR dummy that everyone works on, but to breathe into an actual person, it's really hard.
Dr. Mark Gordon also happened to be in the theater.
Even in the best of situations, only a certain percentage of people survive a situation like that. So at that time, I didn't think that her chances might be good.
Within 5 minutes of the call, Shift Commander Paramedic Bobby Gutierrez arrived on the scene.
How long has she been down? Can you get around?
I found the heart rhythm to be in ventricular fibrillation, which is a lethal arrhythmia. The heart is quivering, so she's clinically dead.
Clear. Still be fit.
He defibrillated her once, and then there was still no response. I continued breathing for her.
And 3, and 4, and 5.
With every minute that goes by, the chances of survival are decreasing. Every second that ticks by, the chances are worse and worse.
Check for a pulse. Clear?
I started crying when they were working on her on the floor, because I thought she was dead. Or would be. I didn't think she would live through it.
360. Okay. We defibrillated her 3 times, and she didn't show much of a response, and that's bad. No pulse.
Okay, continue CPR.
By the time additional advanced life support units arrived, Beatrice had been without a pulse for nearly 15 minutes.
Continue CPR. Continue CPR.
I didn't want to leave. I want to see her eyes. I want to see her open her eyes.
Stand by and check for pulse.
When EMS was ready to intubate the woman, I got up, and when I got up, I saw her face, and right then I was completely sure that it was a wasted effort, that this woman was not going to respond.
Right, you're good.
Great. What do we have on the monitor?
Sinus rhythm on the monitor. Okay. It's faint, but it's there.
They didn't seem to be getting any results. And then I heard someone say that they had got a beat.
We've got the line going.
It was amazing because the paramedic, he said, "Can you open your eyes?" And I was really shocked. And she opened her eyes and my heart just fell to the bottom of my chest. And I said, "Oh God," I wanted to kiss her.
Beatrice Vowles, a 77-year-old grandmother of 2, was hospitalized for 3 weeks, but recovered from her heart attack without any serious after effects.
I had a checkup the first of the month, and the doctor said I was doing great. And I said, if I'm doing so great, let me have my car back. I'm still fussing about that, but I'm doing great, though. I feel good. I walk every day. I'm on a diet. Everyone comes and says, "B, if it ever happens to me, I hope I'm as lucky as you were." The luck of the Irish, why not?
Recently, Beatrice got a chance to meet the people who worked together to help save her life.
Perfect strangers stop and do something like that for you. Because they're great people, they're wonderful. They saved my life. I've been playing a harp somewhere right now. I'm doing all right, I'm doing fine.
Meow. Okay, this is a preview of the episodes that I'll upload tomorrow because they came from the 15th of April. They just added them. Like about 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Over. Everybody was safe. This is a thing that we've never trained to do, nor has ever been done in the 19 years of our unit's existence.
It's just a good feeling that you had when you help somebody. We were fortunate. We were able to pull it off successfully.
Today on Rescue 911, child in danger. A toddler is the victim of a tragic accident.
The heat that he was radiating was incredible.
Now with 3rd-degree burns.
The blisters were enormous in size.
Rescuers must battle to keep him alive. Then A courageous dog saves a child.
She was a hero.
Now rescuers must save her on Rescue 911.
So like this Rescue 911 was baby EJ's burn and Lady's Not a Tramp. Okay, see, it's almost midnight. Hit the big red button and subscribe. Peace out, YouTube. I'm going to hit finish event now.